edition of the NBA Outlet Preview Series presented by OTG Basketball. Follow OTG Basketball on Twitter at OTG Basketball. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me tonight, and as always, Harris Wichard. What's up, Harris?
How's it going, Nick? Excited to continue our preview series here at OTG. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, OTG Basketball, like you said. And really excited the support that we've gotten and really appreciate you guys listening in tonight. The team we look at is the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, Dallas Mavericks, number 18. This is where our writers are starting to think, maybe these teams are going to compete for that last playoff spot or maybe make the playoffs. Personally, I think this is about right for the Mavs. I'm not too high on them. I think, they got injury-prone players like Darren Williams, and, Dirk's starting to get up there in age. And they have some young guys they did pick up like Harrison Barnes and Seth Curry, but they're still, they still have something to prove.
Yeah, not a great defensive team last year. That really held them back, but they did start 9-4. And the thing about Darren Williams and Dirk, and, two of their main offensive threats, and you mentioned Harrison Barnes, is that they have experience in this league. And you were frustrated by the injury-prone Williams and what he did in Brooklyn, but the guy has a little game left, maybe not a ton, but he seems to be older than he actually is. He's only been in the league for 11 years. You would think a guy the way he plays like he does, maybe he's been in the league 14 or 15. But Dirk, the 18-year vet, is going to be there. He's not going to be the same Dirk that we saw between the stretches of 2000 and 2011, but he's still Dirk Nowitzki. You still have to respect him. Wesley Matthews is an interesting piece. Good body, strong, defends well. They have some guys with some chips on their shoulders on this team. Several undrafted players. Seth Curry will come off the bench for them. They have a couple guys that are rookies now that'll try to get some minutes and fight for minutes. But Dwight Powell, and so they have some pieces here and there. This team's going to struggle, I think, a little bit in the loaded Western Conference. I don't think they'll crack that top 5 or 6 like they did last year. And this to me is more of a 7th or 8th. We'll get into that. But I think you always respect Dirk. You always respect Carlisle as one of the better coaches in the game. But I think it's going to be tough for Dallas this year.
Yeah. One guy to keep an eye on in Dallas, we'll probably talk about him a little bit later, is second-year player Justin Anderson. He really played well as a rookie in the playoffs. But let's talk about the Mavs offseason. They were pretty busy, as they always are. One of our writers, actually, Alex Perlman, just wrote something up on the Mavs and how they kind of have the same plan every year. They have these guys on like these short-term contracts, and every year they're getting hype about, one of the top free agents because they're saying they're interested, blah, blah, blah. They end up missing out and then have to fill out the roster with what's left. So this year, what's left is Harrison Barnes. That wasn't bad. They benefited from KD picking Golden State. They picked up Andrew Bogut, kind of fill that Zaza Pachulia role. They picked up Steph Curry's brother, Seth Curry, and picked up some undrafted guys. And they also picked up Quincy Acy, so a veteran off the bench. What do you think of that offseason? Any moves you really like?
Excuse me. No, I like Curry a little bit. Obviously we know the success that his brother has had in the league. And Barnes and Bogut, coming from the winning pedigree of the Golden State Warriors, will help them a little bit. Bogut was a little bit underrated in what he did for Golden State. I think if Bogut was involved in, what games did he miss in the finals that I think would have really helped Golden State? They seem to be getting out-rebounded and manhandled. So that adds a little bit of stability in the paint for Dallas. And I think Harrison Barnes is an underrated player. You're going to see him shine a little bit more now that he's stepping out of the spotlight. You could probably see him be their leading scorer at certain parts of the season with Dirk and Duran being guys that have played in the league for so long. And, Barnes was, if people don't forget this, that he was a All-American in college as a freshman, which was, it was. I think that's the first time it happened in a really long time. So Barnes, his potential is still high. If his handle gets better and his perimeter play gets better, like he was more of like a spot-up role guy on the Warriors, but he showed flashes of all-star ability. So I think Barnes is going to really thrive stepping out of the shadow of Curry, Thompson, and Green.
Yeah, I think you have to like both these guys from the Warriors. Just because they picked up Durant, they let go of these guys. If they don't get Durant, they end up trying to keep these guys. And you mentioned Bogut. He kind of brings those – he does the dirty work. He's really good at setting illegal picks, not getting called for it. Yeah. So, that always helps the team out, help, add that presence in the paint defensively. And you mentioned Barnes. I think he has a lot of potential. A real big issue for this kid, though, is confidence. I think if he's confident and consistent, he has all-star potential. And like you said, Dirk's getting up there in age. Darren misses a ton of games. So he's going to be counted on. He probably will be their leading scorer this season. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Devin Harris will give you some good minutes too. Another former net, 6'3", 185 out of Wisconsin. He was a top 5 pick. Bogut, obviously, number 1 overall pick. Barnes, a 7th pick. So, Deron Williams, a 3rd pick. So they have some – if they could put everything together, there's some experience here. But I think the team is really needing to – once they move away from the Dirk era and then the Deron era here, they'll really be able to break things down and start from scratch and be able to move in the right direction. But Cuban is not really a fan of doing things of that nature. He wants to hold on to something until it's completely broken. As you know, if you watch the show Shark Tank, an investor on it. Cuban is the outspoken owner of the team, and he is what he is. He's got a ton of money. He knows the game a little bit, and he likes to argue with referees and officials. So this team has not had a losing season since 2000. So they've been consistent. They've been in the playoffs, almost every single year with the exception of 2013. Since 2001 with Dirk, they won the finals in 11. They lost the finals in 06. So they've switched coach a little bit, but they have something good in Carlisle. I think he's one of my favorite coaches in the NBA, Nick.
Yeah, no, he's a very good coach. He doesn't get, a lot of hype because, the Mavs haven't done much recently. So I think, like you mentioned, Cuban doesn't want to rebuild really. So it's going to be tough for the Mavs to really have any deep playoff runs until they get lucky in free agency. They'll have to pick up one of these big-time guys and just hope he likes the team.
We also hope that, with Cuban and asking DeAndre Jordan, was he at the carnival or not with that whole mess last offseason. So, and all the emojis that followed. So they didn't have much luck in free agency last year and not really a ton this year either.
Yeah, there was some hype that they would possibly land Hassan Whiteside, and then they ended up not getting him. They were really tied to Barnes all year long, so at least they got him. I think he's a solid piece going forward. But like you mentioned, until they get rid of some of the older veterans, it's going to be tough for them to really compete in the young, talented West.
That 2011 run that Nowitzki had in the playoffs was amongst the most impressive individual performances I've ever seen in my life. The guy shot about 65% in the playoffs, and they had the epic collapse in the 06 finals up 2-0, and then who could forget their first-round loss as a 67-win team to the Warriors. Famously, Steven Jackson saying that those Warriors would beat this version of the Warriors. I'm not so sure that's true, but you know how Steven Jackson works. But this is a Mavericks franchise that's very proud. They love their Dirk Nowitzki, although they booed him earlier in his career. Dirk has been a mainstay, almost not to the same extent as Kobe, but has played his entire career in one place. And to see him now entering his 19th season in the league, it depends on how effective he is and what kind of minutes he'll play. But last year, he wasn't the same Dirk Nowitzki that we've seen. He wasn't bad, but he's just not the same Dirk that we got so accustomed to watching. And his minutes are down. He only played 31 minutes a game last year, which is not terrible, but his three-point percentage is down a little bit, down to 36. He only gets to the line 3 or 4 times a night, and his rebounding is a little bit down from what it used to be. So he's still effective, but I think when you have a guy that's a superstar now for a majority of his career, and then he's on his way out, we could see how that could affect the franchise. Now, Dirk is a much more of a team player than Kobe. Is he better than Kobe? No. But he's much more of a team player than Kobe, so he will understand if he's hurting the team. He shot 45% from the field and scored 18 points a game last year, so he was helping them more than he was hurting them. But it'll be interesting to see if Dirk kind of realizes, hey, I can only play 25, 26 minutes a game, and I'm not the same guy. I'm not going to get the ball with 4 or 3 minutes left in the fourth like I used to.
Yeah, no, I'd definitely like to see his minutes cut down. I think towards the end of the season, maybe he looked a little bit more fatigued. So I think it would probably help him if, they cut him down a little bit, ask a little bit less of him. More teammates set him up than him having to set up the team, especially at the age he's at.
Yeah, and think about this. This is a 13-time All-Star. He was the MVP of the regular season in 2007. And he's, he transcended and revolutionized basketball he's probably, outside of Hakeem Olajuwon, the best international player we've ever seen. He spent, he lived in the 25 to 27 point game range. The 1-foot fadeaway shot will always be the Dirk shot. So this is a guy that deserves all the credit in the world for what he's been able to accomplish. But in order for this Mavericks franchise to move forward and move forward to get back to those 50-win-plus seasons, Dirk's role is probably going to have to be decreased.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said. Maybe if they had a better power forward, Dirk would maybe go in that bench role. But let's take a look at the Mavericks departures. We mentioned all the guys they did pick up, but they did lose a few guys this offseason. JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia, Raymond Felton, Jeremy Evans, David Lee. What are these guys you think they're going to miss the most?
Not Raymond Felton.
I mean, he had some good games for them.
Nick, I'm going to tell you something right now about Raymond Felton because his numbers are so deceptive. You have to watch this guy play. I mean, he just gives up on so many plays. He's one of the – and I don't have anything personally against Raymond Felton, but he just, to me, is like one of the laziest basketball players I've ever seen in my life. But because he could shoot it a little bit, get in the paint, make some plays offensively for you, and those floaters that he shoots, his numbers will look okay. But will I ever start a team with Raymond Felton as my starting point guard? Ask the New York Knicks how that worked out for them in 2013 when they went against the Indiana Pacers in the second round. It did not work well. So, with that being said, they will miss Zaza Pachulia. Everybody else, I don't think they'll miss.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they'd miss Zaza, but they picked up Bogut, and he should fit in nicely in that role.
And Zaza went to the Warriors.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a swap. They couldn't miss Chandler Parsons, even though he just missed a ton of games for them, so they kind of won't miss him. David Lee did a pretty good job when he got traded there, give him some minutes off the bench. I know you hate Felton. I mean, he was okay with them. Like you said, though, I could agree with that he's kind of lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it, like years ago when he was on the Blazers, he came to camp like super chubby.
Yeah.
And there was like cupcake emojis with him or something.
Yeah.
But other than that, departures, nothing crazy. Kind of just like the Mavericks swapped out some guys, and they got younger, which is
there's no really you said Parsons, but there's no major –
Barnes fills that role, so.
Yeah, and also Anderson's going to step up, like you said. He had a solid rookie campaign.
I liked him in the playoffs a lot. He had some nice minutes for them in the playoffs.
Yeah, they're not really missing anybody. I don't really think so.
Yeah, so who needs to step up for the Mavs this year? If they want to make the playoffs, they want to compete for that 8th and 7th spot in the West. Who needs to play big and lead this team?
I'm going to go with what I said before, and the obvious answer is Harrison Barnes, because for a guy that was involved with one of the best teams in NBA history and a role starter, you could call him, and that would be a nice word for him, a role starter, because he only attempted 8 or 9 shots a game and was efficient too. His career shooting percentage is 45 and 37 from 3. So with his shot attempts probably going to go up north of 12, I think he's going to shoot like 3 or 4 more times a game and average about 15 to 16, maybe 17 points a game.
I think he could even more shots than that.
Yeah, if he can embrace this role as the guy at times and he steps into that role, this Maverick team will be better than people expect because he has potential to be the best player on a good team.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he steps into that role, it'll say something about his confidence and that he's feeling confident and he's going to be more consistent, because I think the major problem with him in Golden State was just he was inconsistent. In the finals, he killed him at points because he just could not hit an open shot. And then as soon as he started missing, you're just like, he's not going to hit a shot the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Because that's how you kind of got the vibe from him. So confidence, and if they hand him the keys and they're like, all right, Harrison Barnes, like we're giving you opportunity to be the guy, and he takes on that role, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, they could easily compete for an 8th spot. But if not, he's inconsistent. He kind of lays back, and they have to rely too much on Dirk at this age and Darren Williams. Then they'll probably be in trouble and miss the 8th spot.
I think that if Barnes is really good, they could be the 6th seed again, because after the Warriors, Spurs, Thunder, Clippers, Blazers, to me, I look around the West. I'm looking at Memphis. I'm looking at Houston. I'm looking at Utah. Those teams are all right. They're not anything special, but if Barnes is the Barnes that I think he could be, there's no reason to believe. And I don't know if he will be or not, and I'll make my prediction later. But this is a Mavericks team I think that will probably make the playoffs, but I'd have to say right now, not where they were last year, probably around the 8th seed.
So my next question, they're going to be better or worse?
It's the same. I think they're going to be around the same, a couple games over 500. Not sure what that means for seeding wise. if I had to make the prediction right now, I'd tell you they're going to be the 7, maybe, or 8. It's just they're going to be right on the edge. I think they do sneak in, though, because Dirk and Duran and Carlisle, I think Carlisle's probably most underrated quality is he always has his team prepared. The Mavericks don't come into games unprepared. I mean, they might get beat by like better players like Westbrook and Durant last year, but they were prepared for them. They just got outplayed.
Yeah, I'm going to probably disagree a little bit. I think they'll probably be worse. I just feel like, eventually Father Time's going to catch up with Dirk, and you can't really count on Darren Williams. And Harrison Barnes hasn't proved to me enough that he's ready to be a consistent starter and the guy that they rely on. So if he has confidence issues during the season, it could really hurt this team. I think Justin Anderson will get better this year. And, they have some young bigs that maybe could get a little bit better. But I might see them missing the playoffs.
Well, what's Father Time's record in of all time? What is Father Time?
Undefeated.
Father Time's undefeated. So we know that will happen eventually. I don't know. I hear what you're saying. Part of me just thinks that, like I said, with Carlisle and some of the new guys they've added in Bogut, when you add pedigree, championship pedigree to your roster, whether it's the best player on a team like like a Curry, or whether it's your 4th or 5th or 6th best player, Barnes and Bogut are going to bring some good energy into that locker room that I like a lot better than the energy in Houston, Utah, Sacramento, Denver, New Orleans. So I think they sneak in just on that fact alone. I think they're going to win a lot of games on fourth quarter experience, veteran experience, and coaching. So I think they'll be right around the same. If I had to make a prediction, I would probably say 41-41, 43-39, 42-40, between 41 and 43, and probably sneak in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go my prediction. I think they'll be right around 500 as well. Maybe a game or two above, maybe a game or two below. But I have them missing the playoffs. I think I'd rather go with maybe a team like Houston. I just think they're more talented. And I think Utah will make the playoffs this year. I think it's about time for all those young players. Yep. So that's my pick. But that's pretty much like I wouldn't be like that surprised if they snuck into that 8th spot, like you said, because they do have the experience, which could help. But if I had a bet, I'd probably go outside.
I think they could go as high as 5, as low as 10 or 11. I think there's a range here for the Mavericks that if things start to click for them, they could be where – because no one had Portland as the 5 seed last year. No one had that.
Yeah, no. I mean, personally, I had Portland in the bottom 5. I thought they were going to have a hard time. I thought it was going to be Dame Lillard, and that's about it. CJ McCollum.
Well, CJ McCollum, he stepped up into a real – like, you never know. Justin Anderson could make a step. You don't know –
who's going to step up or who's going to step down.
Yeah, that's true.
But on to our next segment, League Pass. How many are you going to watch the Mavs on League Pass this year?
No, probably not. I mean, a lot of the way that I watch League Pass really doesn't have something – it doesn't really have a lot to do with how good the team is. Obviously, you watch the Warriors and obviously you watch the Cavs, but sometimes it has a lot to do with style of play. Like, I've never really been – a huge fan of the Mavericks style of play. Like, I think there's always a ceiling to it, especially the last few years. But I'll tune into some games, like just to see how Barnes and Bogut work in and just to see what Dirk's up to in his 19th year. But for the most part, like if the Mavericks are playing like the Grizzlies, you'll probably find me doing something else that night.
Yeah, no, I'm agree with you on this. Catch a few here and there. Probably maybe catch them, especially when I play some of the guys in FanDuel.
And when they play the Nets.
And when they play the Nets. For some reason, there's like a little bit of tension between the Nets and the Mavericks. I don't know why.
Yeah, because they're on Williams.
Yeah, that's right now. And then, but even before that, like, I don't know, there was some tension with like Mark Cuban. He's always saying something. So, but whatever, I'll still catch those games. All right, now on to the truth. Our emoji for the Mavericks. What is it, Harris?
We're going to go with the angry face, the eyebrows slanted in and the upset face, because even when they're winning, it seems like their owner, Mark Cuban, has something to complain about. And I think there's going to be a very frustrated Maverick season because I think they're going to show you on certain nights that they could beat the Spurs at home on ESPN. And then there are going to be nights they go to New Orleans and get blown out by the Pelicans. So this is going to be an up and down year for the Mavericks, and that's going to upset our man, Mark Cuban, a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is fitting. I can see the resemblance here. You know, that orange-faced, mad, pissed-off emoji.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban. He's always seeming like he's yelling at some ref or somebody, some player, something. So
Mhm.
it's fitting.
Mark Cuban needs a lot of therapy, I think.
Yeah, he's got plenty of money to get some.
Yeah,
But
but you see Deron Williams dressed like a granny playing dodgeball. That's pretty funny. You might have to add that video into the end of the podcast.
Might have to add that in, throw it in the info section. But that wraps it up for the Mavs. Thanks everybody for listening.
All right, thanks guys for listening. Moving on to our next team in the series, number 17. Hope you guys tune in.